What's good, everyone? OJ here. Welcome back to another video. Today we've got a bunch of interesting information, especially from a game that people kind of have under the radar, but absolutely could be a huge system seller type of game for the Nintendo Switch 2 in 2026, and that is the Duskbloods. So we're going to talk about that in addition to some other great Nintendo Switch 2 information and a bit more. So let's go ahead and jump right into this, because while I'm not the biggest Souls fan out there, you have to look at some of the different games when it comes to Elden Ring, for example, and Dark Souls 3, and some of these games that have just done absolutely incredible sales-wise overall. Elden Ring being a huge triumph overall for that Souls genre, and even Elden Ring Night Rain having some long-term success after a little bit of a rocky start overall. Elden Ring Tarnished Edition was delayed on the Nintendo Switch 2 to give them more time to polish the game up and get it running better after it demoed a bit rough on the Nintendo Switch 2 at different events this year. But what about the Duskbloods? This is a brand new IP in the same vein of these Souls games, but it's going to be a PvP plus events as well. So it's not going to be the traditional multiplayer that you come to know when it comes to an Elden Ring or when it comes to some of the other stuff that they've done, but it's going to be something a bit different. And it seems like they've been testing this game when it comes to the gameplay mechanics and what they're doing for a long time, and it seems like a lot of the employees that are working feel pretty confident that this is going to be one of the better plain Souls games out that they've made from Software. So recently, a Chinese video game journalist who correctly linked Elden Ring information before the game launched has stated that the Duskbloods has been in development from Software since 2019. He went on to say that the game has been playtested internally by the developers more than any From Software game to date, and that the multiplayer game's gameplay is so innovative that it could influence future From Soft games. He also said that the company wants to get the Elden Ring Night Rain DLC out before extensively marketing the Duskbloods. If this information is correct, then we should get a new The Duskbloods trailer at the Game Awards 2025. Let's go into exactly what he had to say here. Quote, shoutouts to MyNintendoNews for the roundup. And he states that, from what I know, the Duskbloods was greenlit even earlier than the marketing period for Sekiro's release. It is the From Software title that has spent the longest time purely on gameplay prototyping and validation among all of their games so far. Although it's PvE and PvP, it reportedly contains many innovative elements the team themselves are very proud of. So this would be massive for the Nintendo Switch 2. Right now, currently, the system definitely has some great games from Nintendo first party wise. There's some great third party games as well. This is probably Nintendo's best overall launch consecutively when it comes to multiple months in a row with first and third party. Sometimes you'll see great first party and then lacking third party. Other times you might see some pretty good third party, but then lacking first party in the Wii U's case. But I think that this is the best balance that we've seen for Nintendo launch, at least in the modern age, that had a good balance within the first 5 to 6 months going on here between first and third party games. I think that if you bring a game like the Duskbloods out and it ends up being as innovative and gameplay rich as this leaker is stating here, and it really does bring a lot of great things to the table, that could be a massive system seller and a huge confidence boost as an exclusive for people to say, okay, I'll go ahead and take the plunge and pick it up. And it will bring new types of gamers that might not necessarily look into a Nintendo Switch 2 to pick up the system, especially if it's going to be a long supported game with a lot of content. Now, like I stated before, I'm personally not the biggest fan of the Souls games overall. I've played most of them. It's just not my thing. But I can't sit here and look at the success of what we've seen from Sekiro and from Dark Souls and from Elden Ring and from Demon Souls and the multiple millions of copies the games have sold, especially with Elden Ring, and not say that this can't be something that blows up if it ultimately ends up being an incredible PvE experience and PvP experience, and you seamlessly blend those together with some really innovative elements within the genre of the Souls games, the action RPGs. If what this person is saying is correct, it truly could be something incredible that can get super highly rated, that a lot of people are going to be excited to potentially pick up, and once again bring a different type of demographic, different type of audience to a Nintendo platform. Whereas in the past, Nintendo has not benefited from pretty much any Souls game. There was Dark Souls remastered, but that was a really pared back version of the game that we saw on other platforms outside of the Xbox 360, where it was barely better than that. That's trying to fit it onto a tiny cartridge overall was not as high as quality as it could have been. So outside of that, there really hasn't been anything else, and we have to wait and see on Elden Ring. We got to wait and see on that, and so far that didn't look too good when we first saw it. Now, and I think that they're going to make it better, but still, it's one of those things to where these Souls games have been pretty much a non-factor on Nintendo hardware, and I think that if you get something that people really enjoy, and it really is an addictive, great multiplayer experience that has some great stuff, especially the PvE stuff. If those gameplay elements and everything are really cool so people can play it like it's a single player game and not have to rely upon just fighting each other, I think once again that will create a very big compelling system selling type of game, because Souls games are massive when it comes down to the appeal of them, despite having a really hardcore line of gamers who love those games. Elden Ring proved that, and hopefully this game is really good. Hopefully it's good, and maybe it might get me into it, but I've tried every single time. I've pretty much purchased most of the Souls games and all that. I was an old school player back from the Demon Souls days, but I kind of fell off around Bloodborne, picked up Elden Ring, just wasn't for me, but we'll see about this one. I'll give it another try, because I did play all the way through Demon Souls originally on the PlayStation 3 and thought that was pretty fun overall for what they were doing. I felt that it was pretty innovative and a great game. So we'll see what happens with the Duskbloods, and hopefully it turns out good. This is an exclusive on the Nintendo Switch 2, so we'll see how From Software and all of them put that together. And of course, if it's at the Game Awards, I think that would be a perfect place, kind of like Bayonetta 3 was revealed at the Game Awards. This would be a perfect place to give another trailer for a different type of audience, for those people to maybe consider getting a Nintendo Switch 2. So we'll see what happens there as well. So what do you guys think about the Duskbloods and what potentially could come of this from a gameplay perspective? Let me know in the comment section below. But before we get to the next topic, please make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you're someone new, and click that notification bell to get my videos as soon as they drop. All right, let's go ahead and jump into the next topic here, and we're going to be discussing Persona and Metaphor's creator, the guy behind some of the most innovative RPGs, JRPGs I should say more like it, in the last decade or so, has talked about what he wants to do next for ATLUS. And he wants to create JRPG 3.0, and I found this to be a fascinating story because I've been there from the beginning when it comes to JRPGs. I love the genre. I think it's great. I think that more turn-based games or more turn-based hybrids with action RPG elements, more things that developers can do to spice things up and to make it better, is ultimately a good thing overall for RPGs. Even with the discussion and a lot of the back and forth and controversy between Expedition 33 fans and what's going on with that compared to Final Fantasy or compared to Dragon Quest and all that, I love Expedition 33. I think it's a great game, and it did a lot of cool things within what we already know, taking the framework of what we know, then pairing it with stuff that's not typical overall to create a very good experience that I played for 80 to 90 hours, beat all the content in there. Thanos snapped the hardest boss in the game with my L, so it was awesome, and I really enjoyed that. But I think that what Mr. Hashino is trying to say here, he has some interesting points that I want to talk about, and he kind of breaks down what is 1.0, 2.0, not quite 3.0, but he gives us a little bit of an idea, and I think I have a little bit more to add to this because I've been playing them for decades now at this point. So recently, Persona and Metaphor Rifantasio director Katsuhira Hashino said in an interview that he wants to take the JRPG genre to the next level, which he has tentatively named JRPG 3.0. Now, Mr. Hashino has stated that ATLUS will accomplish this by ultimately changing the genre's structure and presentation, and will presumably accomplish this mission with the next Persona game and the next Metaphor Rifantasio game, which are no doubt being worked on at ATLUS. Now, Hashino says that JRPG 1.0 includes the true classics. He doesn't name any specifics, but JRPGs are one of the longest enduring games, which games like Dragon Quest existed since 1986, and Final Fantasy seeing new entries since 1987. He says that the genre split into the second iteration with its current style, which he feels is higher quality due to how much more responsive they are to the player. However, the interesting thing here, like I talked about, is the 3.0 section and what he feels about that. And as for what it looks like, he hopes that the next game will be part of this new iteration on the genre. According to the article, he believes that there will be a greater dimension to these games and that they'll change the genre structure and presentation at a fundamental level. So here's what I think he's talking about. One, when it comes to the presentation of it, clearly you look at ATLUS's JRPGs, all of them have been based on older technology. When you first look at it, you look at Persona 5 Royal, even though that's on PS5, that's on Nintendo Switch, that's on Xbox Series, that was a PlayStation 3 game, and the base of it graphically is a PlayStation 3 game. You look at Metaphor ReFantazio, that was in development for a really long time. The base of that was probably also a PlayStation 3 or PlayStation 4, or maybe even moved over from PS3 to PS4. And then you look at SMT5 and SMT5 Vengeance. That base was a Nintendo Switch. So if you're looking at their technology from a presentation standpoint, I think that's where he's really talking about, hey, we're going to take this up to the next level there, because all of their games are based off of PlayStation 3 or Nintendo Switch, or even if we're just being a little bit nice here, maybe PlayStation 4 with Metaphor ReFantazio. So it's one of those things to where I think that presentation-wise, he wants to get it to where the graphics look at least around PlayStation 4 Pro-ish type of level. So that's the first step. The next step, I think, is actually melding all of the elements and all the things that they've learned over the last 20 years or so when it comes to SMT5 Vengeance, Metaphor ReFantazio, and Persona 5. Persona 5 is split and broken up into different calendar days. It can be a bit obtuse for people that like a bit more freedom and less social sim type of stuff. You look at Metaphor ReFantazio, it kind of blends what SMT5 does a bit when it comes to the freeform RPG, but with a little bit more of the sauce that ATLUS has when it comes to Persona. It's a little bit more of a blend, and I think for me, as someone who likes all three of these franchises, my favorite out of the three is Metaphor ReFantazio. Next up is SMT5 Vengeance, then Persona would be underneath that. So I think that if he can find a good blend, and one of the reasons why I don't like Persona as much as the other ones is because it feels a bit too obtuse. Like with the social sim stuff, it doesn't feel natural. It feels too block and segmented. So if he can find a way to naturally or seamlessly incorporate the social elements without it taking up your whole day or your whole night and having to move in such a rigid structure, and put it in almost a free form like SMT5, but still have some of those things, but then also add in the elements from Metaphor that blended both of them, action and turn-based elements as well, I think that they can create a new style of JRPG at ATLUS. But I think it's really just going to take all of that. It's going to take a ton of time and effort as well, but we'll see what they do with Persona 6. I don't think that Persona 6 is going to be a retread of Persona 4 and Persona 5. I think this is going to be a very different type of game that does not block things up so segmented like we see with Persona games for the last decades overall. Persona 3, Persona 4, Persona 5. So since the PlayStation 2 days overall, they've been kind of running on the same type of thing. Persona 3 Reload came out, so people got to experience that type of game again. So I do think that it is going to be different, it's going to be more seamless, and they're going to try to blend all the elements from what they've learned over the last number of decades into a great experience, not only for Persona that's coming up, but also for Metaphor ReFantazio, and potentially even the next SMT game whenever that comes down the line. So what do you guys think about what Mr. Hashino had to say here? I know I'm excited about potentially seeing the next generation of what they can do, because I love their RPGs. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. All right, and moving on to the final topic here, we do have a Nintendo Switch 2 update when it comes down to it. Nintendo Switch 2 and Switch 1 update 21.01 is out now. So let's talk about the Nintendo Switch 2 updates here. Essentially what we've got is that we've got some issues that came about with the last update that Nintendo did. So whenever you bring about a new update to firmware, there's potential for something else. Even though you tested and you made sure everything else, there's something that could potentially happen when it comes to other games or when it comes to other features, or anything like that. And that's exactly what happened with the last update that came out that actually added some nice stuff to it. Nintendo was like, oh wait, hold up, there's some issues. People reporting some stuff not working properly. So let's go ahead and go over what was happening here. So Nintendo Switch 2, Switch 1 update, 21.01 patch notes. Got some error code fixes as well. 2011 and some other numbers, in addition to 2168 and some numbers that would repeatedly occur on a Nintendo Switch when attempting to system transfer using local communication from a Nintendo Switch system to a Nintendo Switch 2 system. That is a bad error, so I'm glad that they actually got that fixed up. Switch 2 fixed an issue where sometimes after waking up the system from sleep mode or turning off airplane mode, wireless controllers or Bluetooth audio devices were unable to connect. Now, I don't think I had that issue, but once again, that is a very bad error as well. Very annoying error overall. Also, general system stability. As you guys know, we need to make this the most stable system of all time. Now, will it be more stable than the Nintendo 3DS? Not so sure, but we'll see. We have to work our way up to that when it comes to the stability improvements to enhance the user's experience. And that's what it's about, enhancing the experience of everyone out there that are buying this nice piece of tech when it comes to Nintendo Switch 2. So yeah, that's pretty much the update here, guys. Nothing necessarily major. There was a big update where they added quite a number of different things. I think next year is going to be when they actually get another big update that adds some extra features and kind of what they're doing. Now that they're kind of moving from the Nintendo Switch 1 to the Nintendo Switch 2, I think all systems are go on just one, making sure the Nintendo Switch 2 can get as much new content or as much new stuff as possible when it comes to games. Now, there was a rumor that Nintendo would be adding in themes or some type of thing like that in 2026, so we're going to have to wait and see at some point if that does get added. So what do you guys think about everything that we discussed here on this video? Let me know in the comment section below. All right, peeps, that wraps it up for this video here. Thank you so much for watching. I do appreciate it. Please make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you're someone new, click that notification bell, and check out my other Nintendo Switch 2 RPG content and more right here on screen. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you guys for the next one. Peace.